Imagine a profession. You're paid enormous sums for a product that you acquire at night in silence from a forgotten graveyard. Your tools are not a pickaxe and chisel, but a shovel and a hook. You are a criminal, a desecrator of graves, despised by all. But there's a catch. Without you and your gruesome trade, modern surgery might never have been born. How did one of the most disgusting crimes in history become the secret engine of medical progress? We are in the 18th century, the age of reason and enlightenment. Great minds are changing the world, but the cities are choking on disease. Surgery of that time was more like a butcher's trade. Without precise knowledge of anatomy, any operation was a deadly lottery. Doctors desperately wanted to change this to save lives, not maim them. But for that, they needed a map of the human body. They needed corpses, and the law was strict. Only the bodies of executed murderers. This was a pitifully small number. A few dozen bodies a year for thousands of medical students. Supply could not meet demand. Science was trapped, and doctors were desperate. But where there is demand, supply will always emerge. In the dark alleys and dirty taverns, a new gruesome business was born. Enter the Resurrectionists, the ironic nickname given to the body snatchers. These were not men of science, but cynical entrepreneurs. The poor gravediggers, even funeral parlor owners, realized a fortune could be made from the freshly dead. Their methods were honed to a blood-curdling level of professionalism. They never used metal shovels so that an accidental strike against a stone wouldn't give them away in the dark. They didn't dig up the entire grave. That took too long. Instead, they dug a narrow tunnel at the head of the grave. Then, with a long iron hook, they would break through the flimsy pine lid of the coffin and pull the body out of the earth like an animal from its burrow. Quiet, fast, and monstrously efficient. The entire operation took less than an hour. The business became a massive underground industry. Gangs of resurrectionists controlled cemeteries, fighting over territory. The public was horrified. Wealthy families hired guards for their loved ones' graves, invented special coffins, and installed iron cages called mortsefs over the graves. But the poor were defenseless. The phenomenon wasn't confined to Britain. In 1788, the Doctors' Riot erupted in New York City, and this is what it was all for. Despite the horror, the flood of material triggered an explosion of medical discoveries. Before this moment, doctors were working almost blind. Now, they could finally create the first accurate map of the human body. Take, for example, Sir Astley Cooper, a star of British surgery. In the shadows, he was known as the king of the corpse buyers. He paid enormous sums. It was he, after studying hundreds of bodies stolen from cemeteries, who was able to perform a miracle. He developed a technique for ligating the abdominal aorta to treat an aneurysm, a fatal condition whose rupture meant certain death. Without the body snatchers, his patients would have been doomed. The secrets of the nervous system were also unlocked. Doctors like Charles Bell, by dissecting skulls and spines, proved that different nerves had different functions. This laid the foundation for modern neurology. Complex surgeries like the safe amputation of limbs also became possible. Every corpse delivered by a resurrectionist potentially saved hundreds of future lives. It was a gruesome bargain, but science was moving forward. But as cemeteries became better guarded, the market began to dry up. The demand continued to grow, and then, in the damp slums of Edinburgh, two men found a simpler solution. Their names were William Burke and William Hare, and they realized it was much easier not to dig up the dead, but to create them. The story took a turn from a loathsome crime to an absolute nightmare. They were not resurrectionists. They were the world's first assembly line serial killers. They lured lonely travelers, vagrants, and the poor to their boarding house. They would get them drunk and then murder them using the Burking method to leave no marks of violence on the body. Their victims, always fresh, undamaged bodies, were sold directly to the famous anatomist, Dr. Robert Knox, who apparently didn't ask too many questions. Over 10 months, Burke and Hare murdered 16 people. The discovery of their crimes sent a wave of shock and disgust that horrified the entire British Empire. It was this horror that finally forced the government to act. Society could no longer ignore the problem. In 1832, the Anatomy Act was passed. This law finally provided medical schools with a legal source of bodies. These were the unclaimed bodies from hospitals and workhouses. The era of the body snatchers was over. Today, every complex, life-saving surgery owes its success to the knowledge born in those dark times. Every time a doctor makes an accurate diagnosis, they're relying on a legacy paid for with blood and desecration. The very medical textbook a student reads today has its roots in an atlas illustrated with drawings made from a stolen body. It's an uncomfortable but honest truth. Modern medicine was born from the union of the noblest pursuit of knowledge and the most loathsome of crimes.
I want to hear your ideas for my next video, so drop a comment below. Your support means a lot, so please smash the like button and subscribe if you haven't already.